bo dosłownie za 3 sekundy tutaj pojawią się kolejni fantastyczni goście. Marcin Mason, Chmielarz, będzie rozmawiał z przedstawicielami brytyjskich browarów oraz stowarzyszenia CAMRA. Zapraszamy na brawa i oklaski. Proszę bardzo, słuchaj, mikrofon i kanapa są twoje, publiczność również jest szalenie rozgrzana, podobnie jak dzisiejsza pogoda i pogoda w Wielkiej Brytanii. Okay, hello guys, please take a seat. Yep. And the microphone is for you.
Thank you.
Hello everybody. We're going to talk about British brewing culture, about CAMRA, about what's changing, about about some hazy IPAs, maybe even some silly beers. But we have plenty to talk about, so let's just start. Maybe you can introduce yourself, say a few words about yourself.
So my name's Aaron. I am the head of sales and new business development at Polly's Brewco. We are a brewery based in a little market town in North Wales called Mold. It is nicer than it sounds. But our passion is brewing modern, hop-forward, pales, IPAs. We dip into sort of the off-beaten track a little bit, but our policy when we first started the brewery was always to excel at a very, very narrow number of styles rather than just be mediocre at everything.
Okay.
Hi there, my name's Laura Emson. I am one of the national directors at CAMRA, which is the Campaign for Real Ale. I have a couple of other hats as well. One is that I'm an advisory board member for Women on Tap, which campaigns for 50% female representation in the industry. And I have jobs with 2 different breweries. I am a sales manager for one called Burton Bridge, which does traditional cask, and I look after the London region. And I also walk around a brewery and entertain people for 5 points in London and have a challenge of an Ask Me Anything on any of the mad stuff that goes on in a brewery.
Hi, my name's Sean. I work for Pomona Island as the lead brewer. I think we'd probably say we're most well known for, it's probably similar to Polly's, is our hazy pales, IPAs. We then, push things into double IPAs and a little bit stronger from time to time, but the majority of our output is, hop forward, hazy style beers. And that's something that we're really proud of. The beers that we produce, we think that they're up there with some of the best of that style in the UK and wider. And then we play around with the odd silly beer, the odd imperial stout, and proudly we produce for a brewery of our size and the style of beers that we make. We have a decent range of cask beer as well, which for us is really important to kind of be able to do both really well, or we like to think really well anyway.
Right. So let's start with a bit of history. Let's start with CAMRA, which is the biggest consumer organization in United Kingdom and one of the biggest customer organization in Europe. And it's been for more than 50 years now, right? So when the CAMRA started, it was about defending real ale, defending the dying, well, not maybe dying, but under attack, being under attack, the British pop culture and the real ale and the brewing traditions. And after 50 years of that, being the big organization, what CAMRA stands for today?
So that's the slightly apocryphal tale. CAMRA actually is what we call a backronym. So it started by being called CAMRA, and the real ale bit actually came once the RA was found as part of the word. We actually started to campaign for independence because we noticed more and more of the market being taken up by big organisations. And they were making keg beer, which was quite new at the time. And most of the breweries that had been running in the UK at the time were making cask. So CAMRA actually started out with the intention of enabling consumer choice, because the fewer and fewer breweries that own what's going on limits consumer choice. Does this all start to sound familiar? I know this was in 1971, but we're in 2025 and we are looking increasingly globally at the market being taken up by a vanishingly few number of megaliths. So, yes, we've done a brilliant job of keeping cask beer alive, keeping it relevant, explaining what it is, how to look after it, how to judge it, how to celebrate it. And we are the international experts on that. But what we are here for more than anything is to make sure that people have choice. And that choice is of good small breweries doing excellent work, and then we find ways of celebrating it, because you can't buy your way into CAMRA competitions. So that's what we still do. So yeah, we still have cask beer because of CAMRA, I'd say, but our job is by no means done because we still have cask beer.
Okay, thank you. So actually you answered a few of my other questions. But I have to ask one thing, because for us in Poland, CAMRA, for the ones that don't know the organization very well, just like outside the UK, in Europe, in Poland, for example, CAMRA seems like a bit of organization for old men in tweeds. And so how well does it resonate now with younger people?
As you can tell, I am a middle-aged man trapped in the body of a middle-aged woman. I love cask beer, I love rugby, I love cricket, I love 70s rock music. But I get asked this a lot. So the people you're describing, they come up to me and they say, oh, I'm not a member of CAMRA because people that look like me are not members of CAMRA. And I say, well, you're the only one who can change that, mate. So, yes, is our average age 61? Yes. Do I lose more friends passing away that I know through CAMRA than through any other aspect of my life? Heartbreakingly, yes. Do these people still have relevance and value? 100%. But we do want more people to join us, because all those things I said I do in the industry, I do because of what I learned from people in CAMRA who took the time and energy to teach me. And I couldn't go on a course for that. I can't, enroll at some college. It's a unique organisation, and if I could just walk out there and just magically take the membership demographics back to where they were in the early 80s, I really would, because it would mean that we had another 50 years in us. So it's not an organisation for old men, but it's an organisation that has a lot, but they're not as irrelevant as it sounds, and actually there's space for everyone. And we have international membership, so hi, join.
Yeah, actually, I'm a member of CAMRA, just joined this year, and I hope to be a member for a lot of time. We can, we all should join CAMRA, join an organization that promotes independence, that promotes choice. And now I want to switch to the modern craft movement in UK, in Great Britain. So, how do you see the British modern craft brewing as compared to American craft brewing? Is it like, are you following the trends, or are you trying to set your own trends?
That's a good point. Technically speaking, we showed them how to do it in the first place.
That's true.
So it's my understanding and my belief is that UK beer and American beer is very, very cyclical. So the American brewers that popped up in the 1980s, they had seen what was going on with CAMRA, understood that preserving cask beer and preserving the Great British Pint was something to be reckoned with. It just so happens that their hops were a little bit different to what we had in the UK. So all of a sudden, this boom started in the States at the end of the 70s, beginning of the 1980s, with the advent of legislation that Jimmy Carter brought in that allowed home brewing up to a certain volume, and that's where your original boom of American craft brewers first came from, was that legislation that allowed them to do that. Roll forward to the sort of 90s, all of a sudden these UK brewers are heading out to the States, realizing that, whoa, this is really interesting. Let's bring this back to the UK. And just as that was really sort of starting to take off, we had our own legislation in the UK that Gordon Brown brought in 2002 that allowed small brewers to brew up to 5,000 hectolitres, and it would halve their duty, and that's what resulted in the boom of UK craft brewers. So to say that we compete with them, it's very, very cyclical. We copy them, they copy us. I would say in terms of the hoppy stuff, we have caught up with the US now. In some cases, we are exceeding what the US is doing. But the understanding that I've always had is that America is always 5 years ahead of what the UK is doing. So whereas we are at the point where we're excelling and exceeding the US hop producing breweries now, Americans, from my perspective, have moved on to more wild fermentation, mixed fermentation stuff, which hasn't really caught on quite so much in the UK as it stands, but you never know. It might start to build an audience and become a thing in the UK. It's not to say that it isn't a thing in the UK. We do have some very, very good mixed ferm brewers, but it's not quite. We haven't quite caught that peak just yet.
So I suppose from my point of view, when it comes to American beer, I think from our side as a brewery, we take a lot of influence from what breweries do in the States. I feel that a lot of the UK breweries, as Aaron said, have sort of gotten to a place now where if you were to do a blind tasting on those hazy sort of IPAs which were so big in the States, I don't think many people would be able to differentiate the UK breweries versus the American breweries. Now, whether that's down to the fact that we have the same hop supply that those American breweries used to eat up themselves, we can get as fresh hops as the breweries in the States can get. We have the knowledge from attending things like festivals and collaborating with breweries from all over the world to be able to pick out and innovate, and actually sort of, when we meet breweries from the States, sometimes we're giving those guys tips on what we do to our beers that they're not currently doing. So I think, again, as Aaron said, it's a bit of a role where people look to the States with a lot of things and as being the first and the best. I think sometimes that comes down to who actually wants to shout about being the best the most. I don't think as British people we like to be quite as loud and tell people how good we are at doing certain things. Obviously we are now. We are telling you all that our beer is as good as that, but it's not something that we excel at, in telling people how good we are at doing certain things. But yeah, definitely when it comes to, like it or loathe it, the hazy beer is here, and people demand those beers from breweries. But the one thing we can do is make those beers as higher quality as we can, and try and be the people who are actually leading the way in making those beers the best that they can be.
Okay, thank you. If someone will ask you, is it one thing that distinguish the British craft beer movement, the craft beer scene from other countries? Is there one distinguished feature that's unique to the British brewing, or is it all mixed up? Can you point one thing that will be distinguished?
Cask is craft.
And that is a very good question, because that I answer because the next question is just about cask and combining cask with craft brewery, because cask are well, not always, but usually there are people think about cask, they think about bitters and classic milds, porters, classic breweries. But how does cask currently goes with modern craft brewing? Is it a platform for innovation? Because beer from cask is a bit different than from keg. So are the modern craft breweries using this, making special beer that will be better from cask? Are they using this platform as an innovation?
So there isn't really a definition of craft outside, but if you use the US Brewers Association definition of craft.
Let's say small independent.
Yep. So I've got two either side of me who make cask. Next.
Yeah, so we have a very good representatives. You done?
Pomona do.
Pomona do. Yeah.
So not all cask beer is craft. That is true. But the same way that not all keg beer is craft. So the container, I think, is a bit of a red herring. For me, what makes a craft beer, so as well as the US US Brewers Association, sorry, there's something really weird happening up there, but over and above what the US Brewers Association define, for me, so somebody who's walking around a brewery talking to people who want to know what craft beer is, for me, that is when the brewer makes the decision of when to move to the next stage of the process by using their eyes, their nose, their mouth, their instruments. They're not sitting in some kind of tech suite pressing a button. And at that point, it doesn't matter what container that beer is going into. That brewer is standing there next to it and using their knowledge, their passion, and their skill to decide whether or not it's ready to go into the kettle or whether it's ready to go into the fermentation stage. So I think, yeah, the fact that it then ends up in a cask, great, but it can still end up in a keg and still be a bloody good beer. So I think if we allow ourselves to get tied up in knots over whether it's okay to call cask craft or anything, I think we're just going to end up letting the big boys win because we're so busy infighting that actually we're going to do ourselves a disservice. So cask is craft and craft beer is good. So cask beer is good.
I think as well, when the times of most of the British pubs would have all of their lines tied to the big boys, all of their cask offering would have been more traditional. So I think a lot of the cask beer not being craft beer was lumped into that kind of that same thing because people were so used to the cask beer they were offered being a bitter or a mild, maybe an IPA here and there, but the styles became so kind of close with people's sort of the way they perceived it as the only beers that go into cask are traditional because they were only seeing beers from the major breweries. We make keg beer, we package into bottle with our mixed firm and our imperial stouts, we can, and the stuff that we put into cask isn't driven by having to be a traditional style of beer, we can put a adjuncted stout into a cask. We put lots of hazy pales into cask because they are as delicious as a keg beer on cask. There may be slightly different techniques that we use when we brew those beers, but and again, we still do traditional beer in cask. We brew bitters and we brew a mild here and there. But yeah, I think unfortunately, the viewpoint of people was driven by what they were able to see on the bar. And now that you have more and more craft breweries, you have more and more micro bars that are popping up that don't have tied lines, or if they do have tied lines, they're from craft breweries, so they can offer a choice to people. That's the most important thing with changing people's mindset, is that they're able to see it. It's like a lot of things in the world. If you don't see something that you recognize, or people have the opportunity to change your mind, then you're not going to know what something is. Cask is not a different product to craft beer, but sometimes it isn't as well. It's just giving people the choice, and also those, if you're in a pub and you've got an option of cask beer and it's from one of the big boys, doesn't also mean it's not going to be delicious. It can't always be terrible, but I would rather give my money to the smaller people.
Sure. And what do you think about classic beer styles that are modernized? Because some time ago, I made a modern bitter in Poland. So the idea of this beer was to use base malt from England, Mary Sutter, and English yeast, and then some American hops and there was no crystal malts, so it was have some malty character, hoppy. I tried to the profile of water was a bit of like for a bitter. It was a good beer, but a lot of people said no, that's not a bitter. That's too pale. That's not caramely. That's not how it should be. And often we have those discussions in Poland, like with modern grodziskie. The grodziskie should be 100% smoked malt. So modern grodziskie is made with less smoked malt to be more appealing to wider public. And there are a lot of discussions that no, that is not true to style. That shouldn't be done. And some people say, but we should make something different to make people interested in the style. So what's your point of view on that? Is classic cannot be touched, or should it be modernized? Should we play with it?
I think from my point of view and the kind of beer that we make as a brewery, I couldn't really sit here and say that the style guidelines need to be stuck to, because that isn't what we do as a brewery. We push the boundaries of what beers are supposed to be, and I'll be honest, we don't ever, when we're looking to produce a new beer, a style guide isn't something that we think of in that process at all. That doesn't mean to say that it shouldn't be ever, but from our point of view, that isn't something that we look at. We try to just make the thing that we're brewing as tasty as it can possibly be. But with all these things, I'm talking without necessarily knowledge. You can probably pass on a little bit more on this, but styles can change. The beers are not the same as they were 100 years ago, or even further in the past. So we're only where we are now by people making things that aren't to the strict way that it's supposed to be made.
Did your beer taste nice?
Yes.
Right, that's all we need then. So if anyone is interested, it's probably not okay for today, but tomorrow I've got a bottle of what is a very, very traditional IPA, as it was when the style was invented, that's currently being made by one of the breweries I work for. I think the only place, not the only place, but I think the main place where style guidelines are important, two main places. One is in competitions where you are awarding prizes. And the second one is when you've got an insufferable bunch of nerds around a table trying to see who can be the most annoying. And any other part of it, it will help you narrow down what you want to drink. I've said NIPAs made me lazy because I could walk up to a bar, see one, and then have one while I decide what I really want to drink. And because that's kind of what they are, that's where they live in my brain. Yeah, if you want to sit there and argue about IBUs and colour and original gravity and everything else, that's great. But when I'm in the pub with my friends, I want to be enjoying a beer that tastes nice and then leave it at that. And if there's something wrong with it, know what's wrong with it. Know that it's wrong and not just the style, and be a good consumer. But other than that, I think if we tying ourselves in knots about what a style should be, then we're losing the beauty of what is a natural product.
I mean, that's it. You know, nobody gets anywhere without innovation. You know, going back and the Alchemists brewing the first version of Heady Topper. We wouldn't have New England IPAs without those. Going back even further, the brewers that brewed the first IPAs, you wouldn't have that innovation if someone didn't think, oh, let me just throw a shitload of hops at this. There's no reward in just sitting there and being content with just the same all the time. So whether that's just a tweak on the water profile here, or a change on the grist bill over there, or using this hop rather than this hop, there's no punishment for innovation and just trying different things, because if you don't try different things, then you don't get more interesting beers that all of a sudden you never know could become the next big thing.
So, just a last point on that.
Yep.
How many breweries have come up with a new product line because something went wrong? Tasted good, and then went, better sell it then. And then it becomes really popular, and suddenly you've got to work out what went wrong and try and replicate it. And I have a friend who's done that with a style of mead where his kit caught fire. And it was so delicious, he's had to buy a kit that he can sacrificially burn because it's his most popular product line. So mistakes actually drive innovation as well. So it's not all about being perfect.
So each time he makes the meat, he have to burn the... Okay, that's really interesting. So we are at a beer festival, as we can see. And the beer festivals is something very unique, very interesting in British brewing culture. So just recently, CAMRA is also publishing a lot of books. And there was also a book called Beer Festivals, A Great British Tradition. So what do you think makes British beer festivals so unique, so interesting, and part of the tradition and culture, and how does it different from other festivals? We talked before and said that there is 143 small local beer festivals in Great Britain every year. In Poland we have like 20 maybe, so that's astonishing. So can you tell us a bit more about the British beer festival culture?
I'll start with the CAMRA ones and then pass on, because I know you've both had involvement with some of the others. So the 143 are the ones run by CAMRA. So that doesn't include ones that are run by SEBA and various others. When you first asked that, I would say, I presume most of you have visited the UK, so you will understand sometimes why we drink. But that's humour aside, it's an extension of the pub. The pub is, you can go all over the world, and the pubs they will replicate are the British pubs or the Irish pubs. But because we seem to make the blueprint of what a pub looks like. And then beer festivals are extensions of those pubs. And they sometimes go alongside other events or celebrating a particular something that's happening in a local area. The ones what makes the CAMRA ones unique is that they're all volunteer-led, and unless you take a brewery bar, which is a very limited number of them, no brewery can influence their way into those festivals. It is chosen by the volunteers, it's chosen by consumers. And that means there's a trust level from the local community that they know the beer in there is going to be good because people have got it there because it's good, not because it's been bought its way in. There's so many other things that make it that, but I think to allow the other guys to give a view of some different types of festivals, I'll hand over, but you feel free to ask anything else.
So I think from the kind of festivals that we attend as a brewery, they seem, they're generally organised either by a local craft beer bar / bottle shop that wants to bring an extension of what they do day to day into a wider setting, to be able to gather all their customers together in a larger space and let them sample beers from all of the breweries that they generally enjoy buying from throughout the year, all in one place. And the other types of festivals are, again, very similar, but organised by our fellow breweries that are looking to, again, allow their local customer base to sample beers from breweries that are friends and collaborators, and also bring in influences from Europe and the wider world. A lot of American breweries come over to some of those festivals. Personally, I enjoy attending those as a representative for the brewery that I work for, because you get to catch up with friends that you've maybe made from other festivals, colleagues from other breweries that you don't, necessarily get to spend time with throughout the year because everybody is so busy attending other events and festivals and, just trying to brew beer and sell beer in the day to day. And again, that's very similar to the CAMRA festivals in that the people that are attending those are attending them to spend time with the buddies. We're doing exactly the same, just as a brewer, our friends also tend to make beer or sell beer or are involved in brewing in some way. And the only time we get to spend time with those people is to go to those festivals in our spare time and have a drink and, we talk beer and try and get tips on, this brewery has just released this new beer and we're a big fan of it, and try and get a bit of information out of them into what it is that they did that made that beer taste the way that it was. So from my point of view, that the way that I attend those festivals is unfortunately less of a, just a standard customer and just trying to go out and have a good time. I sort of selfishly want to try and get a bit of info to make what I do better and better myself, but then also catch up with a brewery that I've maybe not seen for 18 months because I've not been fortunate enough to attend a festival and find out how they're doing, and maybe they've moved to a new brewery or moved to a different country, and try and get a bit of insight into what their brewery is like to work for as well.
I think as well, talking from my side of things, from the sales point of view, it's a good opportunity to network with other breweries, learn things from them. A lot like what Sean was saying, but to be able to achieve opportunities that you wouldn't ordinarily get if you just went to a collab day, for example. Coming to something like this from the department that I work in within Polly's, I can get a new avenue into Europe through coming to something like this. On top of that as well, craft beer is the weirdest fucking industry in the world. I don't know any other industry that has Facebook groups dedicated to it. I don't know if there's a breakfast cereal Facebook group on Facebook. I don't know if there's anything else like that. But people who enjoy craft beer like to come and see the people that make their favorite beers. And it's nice to be able to have that interaction with people who may end up being a peer in your industry at some point. It's always great to see someone who maybe 3 years ago was a drinker, and then you go to a festival today, all of a sudden they're there, they're brewing their beer, they're sharing what you inspired them to do. So I think there's from a sales point of view, it's an opportunistic thing, but also from just a culture point of view, it's unique unto itself, the industry that we work in.
So very quickly, we were at SEBA Beerex this year, which is in Liverpool, and the next door place had some kind of housing finance annual conference, and the longing looks in the eyes of the people in the housing finance conference at us going into a conference that was just about beer. I kind of was like, yeah, I might get paid bugger all, but I've won at life today because I'm not at a conference about housing finance.
All right. And just recently, there was a petition online to put the British beer culture on the UNESCO list. And do you think it could happen? And do you think it should be on the UNESCO heritage list? Is the British beer culture that unique? And you agree?
Absolutely, it is. It's a heritage that stretches back hundreds of years, and has influenced so much within the beer stratosphere. They always say that there are heritage countries that exist when it comes to beer, and obviously you've got the US, you've got Germany, you've got the Czech Republic, and the UK is part of that group. There are so many styles, there are so many things that have come out of our tiny little island in northwest Europe, sorry. I have had a couple of IPAs today, I am sorry. There are so many things that have come off our tiny little island that it seems crass to not acknowledge the importance that we've had to brewing heritage and brewing culture.
Well, the Belgians managed it, so why shouldn't we?
Because they are in Brussels, so they are more influential on the European Union probably. And you made Brexit, so you made it harder for yourself.
But I think it is that it's you. Very few other places have it, and it's specifically cask beer. So there was talk about whether to extend it to pubs, and I think cask beer was where it was landed, because that when you look at the definition of the UNESCO World Heritage status, there are some things about it that you have to be very, very specific. And the fact that we could even get it down to that by cask beer having that level of definition and repeatability. So if we can meet the threshold, the petition was to get it debated by Parliament. The debate by Parliament means that every country is allowed to put forward one proposal to be considered. And the petition is for the UK to put cask beer forward as our nomination. We only ratified UNESCO World Heritage membership in March this year. So we couldn't have done it beforehand. It had to go through a certain process. So we've followed all of the rules, and we feel that if Parliament choose that product to be what we put forward, it absolutely deserves to be recognised alongside some of the other amazing things that are.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I'll add is that you can meet anybody from any country in the world where you go on holiday or, you know, they're visiting the UK, everybody, you know, whether this is on, you know, late night UK or American talk shows, if they're talking to somebody and they mention visiting the UK, the one thing that all of those people also always mention is that they love the pub. Because that is not something that is common in every country. Whereas in the UK, I can cycle or drive into work, and, you know, depending on the route I choose, I will pass multiple pubs, and not bars or, you know, fancy wine bars, just actual proper traditional pubs. And then when you add the more modern versions of those things into the mix as well, there's a reason why people mention and you know, in the conversation around talking about the UK, if they were to list their top things that they did whilst they were in the UK, you know, they may say, oh, you know, Big Ben was quite good and I visited this place or that place, but they are also going to mention the great night they had in a pub drinking beer, which is, you know, when I go to a lot of places around Europe or the rest of the world, when I come back and my friends ask me what I did that was great there, not a lot of the time that I will mention one of the bars or pubs that I went into. I will mention all of the other things. You know, maybe that's a bit of a slight on everything else in the UK, but the pub's great. So, you know, whether it's recognised as being amazing or not by somebody somewhere just making a decision, you know, it's good.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The pub culture, the British heritage pub is something that I just go in and I feel like I'm in home. And I was once in a pub that I feel very comfortable, lovely, and I was the first time there, the last time, and it was just right. So yes, I think this is something really unique and should be preserved and should be cherished. Do we have time for one more question, or should we start off on the scene? Yep, we should release the scene. So, thank you for watching, for listening. Thank you. We could be talking about British beer for hours because it's a great topic and there's lots of things going on. So, if you want to chat with our guest, feel free to do so. There is a stand, Great British Beer. So, they will be around, and let's talk about British beer culture. And there are some great British beers on tap available. Yep. Sure.
So I'm being really cheeky here. So when we were talking earlier, and I said about the 143 festivals that are run by CAMRA each year, as of January, all CAMRA members get into all of those festivals for free. That is, and anyone, like, you can be an international member of CAMRA. So if you fancy coming over to the UK and trying some of our different beer festivals, if you join, it's like probably about 45, 50 euros or something.
30 euros?
38 pounds, something like that.
Something like this, yeah.
I can't do it in zloty, I'm afraid. But you can come over and you can experience the tiny ones, you can experience the really, really big ones. You still have to buy a ticket. You can't just walk in and everything. But if you really want to have an experience of what it's like to be at a British Beer Festival, joining CAMRA is a really, really inexpensive way of doing it. And I would be irresponsible if I didn't get that plug in. So I've earned my flight over.
Right, so join CAMRA, drink British beer, go to British beer festivals, enjoy a proper pint. Thank you.